The dictator who ruled Gabon for 42 years, the story of Omar Bongo. Omar Bongo Ondimba is a name that will forever remain in the lips of most Africans, if not for the fact that he was a dictator, but for the fact that he holds the record for the longest ruling non-monarch in the world. Omar Bongo was so successful at the art of holding on to power that by the end of his life, there was no one left in the country with enough authority to pronounce him dead. It took more than 24 hours for the death of the 73-year-old president of Gabon to be confirmed, during which time there was no less than 3 official denials. Omar Bongo Ondimba was the president of Gabon from 1967 to 2009, with 42 years in power, making him Africa's longest-serving president. He was one of those dinosaurs who had ruled dictatorially for too long, classic examples being Mobutu in Zaire and Eyadema in Togo, both of whom were so fixated on power that they nearly brought their countries down with them. Bongo may have been in a slightly different category, as Gabon had known no major civil conflict during his rule, and in spite of early brutalities in power, he tended to seek solutions to political problems through dialogue, and it has to be said, the illimitable power of money gave the power to buy politicians over. Let us take a deep look into his life before power. Early life. He was born Albert Bernard Bongo, the youngest of 9 children, in the village of Lewaer near Franceville in Upper Ogooué. His father died when he was 7, and he was sent to school in Brazzaville, the capital of French Equatorial Africa, of which Gabon formed a part. He went on to secondary school there at the Lycée Technique Savonarina de Brazza and obtained a diploma in commerce before returning to Gabon in 1958 for a job in post and telecommunications. He found a godfather there in the shape of a French chief postal inspector called Naudi, a militant socialist and dedicated Freemason. He introduced the young Bongo to both, but only the Freemasonry stayed with him, continuing as an important part of his power networks. Early career. Ambitious and restless, Bongo volunteered late in 1958 for the French Air Force, where he stayed for 3 years and reached the rank of second lieutenant, traveling in the region and completing his baccalaureate. He also had the experience in military intelligence, although he strongly denied ever working for the French security services. While still a serving officer, he was posted to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, created after Gabon's independence in 1960, and came to the attention of the country's first president, Léon, who in 1962 brought him into his private office. There, Bongo rose rapidly to be Directeur de Cabinet, and after the thwarted coup of February 1964, he was given crucial responsibilities for national defense. At this time, the French were greatly concerned about keeping Gabon in the French sphere of influence because of the country's concentration of wealth, notably its potential in the oil sector. In the presidential elections of March 1967, Bongo was elected vice president, thus constitutional successor to Mba, who was already suffering from cancer and died in November of that year. Bongo's reign. Bongo learned the power game fast, mastering the mechanisms of the single-party state, backed up by the security of a French military base and a defense agreement, which had been used when French troops reversed the overthrow of Mba in 1964. He was also the beneficiary of an oil business just coming on stream, which tripled in value after the 1973 global crisis. This facilitated political control, but also gave Gabon a reputation for extravagance, seen in the luxurious presidential palace built in the mid-1970s. Bongo's own involvement in corruption was legendary, as was his wealth, but if it was occasionally exposed internationally, from the Lockheed scandal of the 1970s through the huge scandal of ELF, the French state-owned oil company, it had little effect on his domestic political position. The Gabonese political class were all enjoying the benefits. He was not known for sound economic management and was often in deep trouble with the Washington institutions, especially over the Trans-Gabonese railway linking his home region to the sea, which mainly benefited timber companies exploiting Gabon's quality hardwood. It soon became clear that from having been seen as a French puppet, Bongo had in fact built a powerful network of allies in all parties in Paris, and was able to use his influence to secure the removal of the unwelcomingly reforming ministers, both under the Mitterrand in 1983 and Sarkozy in 2008. In 1990, with the end of the Cold War and Africa's democracy wave, his position was uneasy for a time, and he was obliged to accept multipartism. But his instinct for political survival was strong, and if French troops were briefly used in domestic unrest in 1991, it was sufficiently only to protect French citizens. In recent years, there has been a little serious political trouble in Gabon, and its experienced hand has been directed to mediation in other African countries. With his height enhancing heels and his talent for a whimsical turn of phrase, Bongo came across as a comedian. His pragmatic opportunism was seen in his conversion to Islam and adoption of the name El Hajj Omar in 1973. Although his view of religion was inclusive, especially in a country where traditional ways still had strong roots, he added the name Ondimba only at the beginning of this century, perhaps an indication of returning towards his ancestors. Bongo scandals. The unpleasant side of the Bongo regime was exposed in Pierre Pien's 1983 book Affaires Africaines, and regular attacks on the president appeared in the Parisian media, to which he seemed, for the most part, impervious. He once told an interviewer, "Corruption is not an African word nor a question to ask," but even as he was critically ill, he was being pursued by French magistrates. To make matters worse, his bank accounts in Paris were all frozen. His career opponents were not out of the picture, and it was not advisable either to be too closely connected to his flamboyant first wife, Josephine, who eventually divorced him and went to live in Hollywood, launching a career as a pop star under the name of Patience Dabani. The marriage produced a son, Ali, and two daughters, Pascaline and Albertine. Ali served in the government in the 1990s. He was deeply attached to his second wife, Edith, daughter of President Sassou Nguesso of Congo-Brazzaville. Her death is said by many to have brought on his illness. His own death may come to be seen as marking the end of the era of cronyism between France and Africa, known as Francafrique. Bongo was the greatest living symbol of much that was wrong in the relationship between him and his country. Political dynasties across Africa have continued to decline over the years, as they are largely absent across most parts of Africa, largely in Central Africa, because most of Africa's Hittite presidents operate within that region. Gabon is one of many nations currently operating one of such dynasties. The Bongo name has been associated with the presidency since 1967, and with 42 years for Bongo Sr. and Ali Bongo, who has been in charge so far for 12 years, brings the total of the Bongo years to 54 in power. We have come to the end of this educational video. Thanks for watching. Do drop a comment in the comment section with suggestions concerning the longest serving president of our time. If you enjoyed watching the video, kindly like, comment, and also share it with your friends and family.